This thing is absolutely mental. Where's it come from? Okay, so if you follow this channel, you probably know that we've already reviewed the Hyundai i30. So you might be wondering why we're doing another one of this Invercar blue one with a big N on the back of it. Well, it's partly because I keep hearing from other motorcar journalism types that this thing is brilliant. And what's surprising about that is that while the i30's good and that, it's not the sort of car that you would drive and then immediately go and tell your friends about. Like when I reviewed it, I was talking about service intervals within 2 minutes. Hyundai does fixed price servicing and MOTs for up to 5 years too. And I basically concluded that it's all blander than a cricket-themed special edition of Gogglebox. But this one, the big N one, it is something else entirely. This then is certainly Hyundai's first hot hatch and arguably its first proper performance car in Europe. I mean, we have had the almost cult classic Hyundai Coupe in the 90s and 2000s, and then more recently, Hyundai's wildly unsuccessful foray into asymmetrical coupes with the Veloster. But they only ever looked like performance cars without ever actually being one. This though, performance car. It has a 2-litre turbo engine with either 250 or 275 horsepower, depending on whether you get the performance package. Now, in the pantheon of modern hot hatches, 250 to 275 horsepower isn't really earth-shattering, unlike the suspension, which is. We'll get to that. As you can see by comparing it to the other ones, because today's hot hatch is generally from the Snap School of Engineering. Complete with the sort of 0 to 62 time that shouldn't be possible for a car that you can also take your mum to Iceland in. On that basis, the i30 looks a bit disappointing. But that's not what this car's about. The 62 thing, I mean, it's probably pretty good at getting mum to Iceland. Nope, this car's about attaining the rawest driving feel that it's possible to attain from a front-wheel drive hatchback. Well, somebody at Hyundai's been listening to Katie.
Don't be afraid to catch feels.
Because they've managed to catch all the feels. Possibly too many, to be honest. The suspension on this thing is ridiculous. At this point, I should say that from now on, we're going to be talking about the Performance Pack i30N. Now, that's the higher powered one with an electronic slip differential, a louder exhaust, basically, and which costs about 3 grand more. I'll say it now, you'd be mad not to get this one. Let's continue. Like pretty much everything in this car, the suspension's adjustable between comfort and sport. Although those words are completely inappropriate because, in fact, this car's suspension is set up on a brutality scale between Mike Tyson.
Here comes Mike, spikes in. He leads to the right hand. There he goes.
And Old Testament God.
Oh, let me light that for you, babe.
Wow.
Yeah, magic fingers.
Allow me to demonstrate. So I'm about to show you some footage of me driving on a particular B road. Now, it's not the best B road you'll find in terms of the surface, but it's fairly typical of what you'll find in the UK. Firstly, I'm going to drive it in comfort mode. As you can see, a little bit bumpy. Now here's me on the very same bit of road, but with the suspension in Sport Plus. This car is so unyielding that it should probably come with a pair of padded bicycle shorts. Having said that, totally worth it. This thing feels pretty much nothing like a hatchback. And the fact that it's based on a Hyundai i30 makes it even more brilliant. It's like one of those George Clark Amazing Spaces programs where they've taken a crappy old caravan, and then you open the door and it's a fully functioning theme park. So how has Hyundai done it? Well, for a start, it's employed this happy guy. He's called Albert, and he's quite important because until recently he was in charge of BMW's M division, which means that he signed off some of the world's great drivers' cars. So Hyundai gave happy Albert carte blanche to throw the full spectrum of performance car shizzle at the i30N. So the result is stuff like the steering rack, which has got its own tiny little dedicated motor to make it sharper and more accurate. And it's got launch control, and it's got a sound emulator in the cabin, that uses the speakers for extra.
How you doing, Rex?
And it's got an active exhaust for even more noise. And it's got rev matching so that the throttle automatically blips when you change down gears. Heel and towing for dummies, if you like. It goes on and on. And you access it all by pressing this little blue button on the steering wheel with a flag on it. Do it and everything's wound up to biblical. And that's when all of Albert's good work comes into sharp focus. Sharp being the operative word. Like at times you just will not believe that this is a front wheel drive hot hatch. The steering's as precise and as heavy as Dave Grohl behind the kit. The exhaust pops and bangs. The engine note has this really thick bottom end that just gets more pronounced the further up the rev range you go. And you can customize all the individual elements of your drivetrain depending on your preference and save them in this custom end mode. You probably want to use that to have the suspension in its softer setting when you've got everything else wound up. But it's the way it goes around corners that makes the i30N feel so very special. Between the feel of the steering and the tightness of the suspension and the differential apportioning torque appropriately across the front axle so it just pulls you around corners, you can confidently change direction in this thing at just ridiculous speed. It just feels like it was designed to be a sports car without any compromises. Now, I'm reluctant to say this because some hero on the internet will undoubtedly call me a hurtful name as a result, but it almost has the feel of a Porsche Cayman. You know, the way it goes across the road, the way it steers, the way it sounds. Again, just that feel of uncompromising, driver-focused sharpness. Actually, if anything, the i30's dedication to the art of driving in its purest form can be a hindrance elsewhere. Even with everything dialed down to comfort, the N still feels on the edge of being manic. Obviously there's the ride quality, which will rule it out for some people immediately. But then there's stuff like the quite unusual rear strut brace, which totally gets in the way when you fold the rear seats down. And how much difference can that actually make? Really. And the steering's so heavy that around town it can feel like an unnecessary workout. And the seats like really clamp you in at the sides, which is good for corners, but not so good for the corner shop. It's like a lot of the stuff that the i30 normally excels at, you know, basically being a mind-numbingly boring but comfortable and practical hatchback. That's all been left in Albert's office bin. The problem with that is that fast Golfs and fast Leons and fast Peugeot 308s, they are still really good at that stuff. You know, they're much better at being comfy hatchbacks when you can't be arsed with all of this corner and malarkey. But you know what? It more than makes up for that by being the most incendiary object to come out of Korea since Kim Jong's last big fireworks test.
12월 10일 평안북도 철산군 서해 위성 발사장에서
Plus, there's a fastback version coming soon, and we're told that that might be a little bit softer and it'll be a bit more practical. And it's priced well too, coming in cheaper than all the other stuff that we mentioned earlier. Honestly, over the last week, I've like proper fallen in love with this car. At first, wasn't sure, far too hard, too uncomfortable, bit plain on the inside, didn't really do much for us. The more you drive it, the more you get to know it, and the more confident you get in its ability, the more you realise it is just a work of absolute brilliance. It's focused on being fun to the nth degree, you might say, which is where the name comes from. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. If you want a more detailed road test of this, you'll find it at HonestJohn. And if you want to watch the i30 video in full, we'll put a link up to it somewhere close. Bye.